They say an orthorexic is a person with an unhealthy obsession with healthy food. And while I do believe there are probably super obsessive compulsive people that do have a problem with this, let's be real. Virtually all the people labeling others as orthorexic are just weaklings that don't possess the wherewithal to get their own lives in order, so they need something to say to make them feel better about their own ineffective garbage diet and lifestyle. Calling healthy eaters orthorexic is just another excuse not to try, because trying is hard and so is achieving actual health. Hey everybody, this is Dylan. I eat a diet rich with healthy whole plant food as opposed to a standard American diet. And although there are some exceptions from time to time with junk food, my everyday diet does not include animal products, processed junk food like chips and cakes, no processed fake vegan meats and cheeses, no processed extracted oils, and no alcohol. I keep my salt intake to a minimum, and I enjoy sugars from whole fruit like dates as opposed to refined sugars or juice concentrates. I do eat unhealthy food from time to time, but it's quite rare, and when I do it, I don't go around pretending like it's healthy just to save face. I own it. And what I do eat on a regular basis is the food that made up the bulk of calories consumed by our ancestors. A well-balanced mix of veggies, whole fruit, whole starches like potatoes, beans, and whole grains, and some healthy whole plant fats like nuts, seeds, avocado, and maybe some soy products like edamame or tofu or tempeh. And yes, I know our ancestors did consume a little bit of meat, but it was quite rare and only necessary because everything else was in such short supply before we finally invented farming. And when it comes to my diet and lifestyle, one thing I do not do is obsess over any of it. In fact, that's the whole point of this YouTube channel, to help people to work through the learning curve as quickly as possible so that they can transform their diet and lifestyle and get back to a place where it's all very easy again. Before I began eating this way, I hadn't gone even one full day of healthy eating in my entire life. That is how not normal it is to even just try a healthy diet, let alone maintain one for your whole life. And just because something isn't normal does not make it orthorexic. Calling someone orthorexic because they're better than you at health is just snowflake behavior, and the only reason they're getting away with it is because most of the people listening likewise don't want to do the hard work that it takes to solve their underlying health problems. They just want to party on and be told that everything they're doing is good, but it's not. In a world where 90% or more of all calories consumed is pure junk, it is no longer normal to eat like our species evolved to eat. 3/4 of the US population is now overweight or obese, which is pretty much proof that intuitive eating or eating in moderation is all made up. Unless you have some kind of really rare personality type where you can have 2 bites of rich food and feel satisfied. And the reason that personality type is so rare is because those weren't the people that would survive to pass on their genes in a world where food is super scarce, which is like 95% of our natural history. This whole myth of moderation relies on a human food and survival psychology that is the complete opposite of what is actually in our brains. I'd be willing to bet with confidence that anybody claiming to successfully be living on this intuitive eating in moderation thing is probably constantly struggling with their brain, trying to rely on their willpower to keep them from going overboard. And this is not sustainable. Willpower is not strong in humans, plus it runs out. If you're in an environment where you're faced with a bunch of opportunities to make terrible decisions, then you're finally going to give in and make one. And it's probably not going to be 1 or 2 bites of rich food. If you're anything like me, you're going to crush the whole bag of potato chips in one sitting, and I know you're like me. And if this moderation thing was sustainable, all of the people that tell us to eat in moderation would be lean and slender, and they're not. Our bodies evolved to seek the richest food in our environment so that we eat as much as we can, put on as much fat as we can, so that we've got it available as a fuel source when food is really hard to find. This is human source code. You can't just change it because you want to. This is why we have the ability to distinguish between food that is super good and only medium good, like comparing roasted nuts with a bowl of salad. We always are going to seek the richest food because that is the food that gives us as much storage capacity so that we can survive the longest amount of time. It's that simple. And herein lies the problem, because our food physiology and psychology has not changed at all over the last 200,000 years, but our environment has. Everything that used to be scarce is now readily available, and most of what's eaten has now been so heavily modified just to be as rich and irresistible as possible. So if you're touting an eating method that relies on a person's willpower to push up against their embedded human psychology to stop them from eating all the bad things, then you're just wrong and naive. Food is the #1 cause of death and disability in this country. If this intuitive eating method were so natural for people, then we wouldn't have such unbelievable prevalence of heart disease, diabetes, and obesity, among other diet-related chronic illnesses. So what do? Our people have simply eliminated the bad food from our environments altogether so that we aren't faced with opportunities to overeat them. Instead of relying on our willpower or intuition, we actually have created systems so that we have an environment that is conducive to our well-being. And we try to put people in that environment that agree with us, kind of like you do. We don't buy the rich fake food so that when the cravings do arise, it's simply not available to us. And then we get used to it not being available to us, and then the cravings start to go away because we haven't had the opportunity to give into those cravings for quite a while. And then we realize how delicious and healthy whole plant food is and how satisfying it can be, and we start to crave that. So then we make sure that our environment is always full of these natural, healthy foods from our natural history, and then it all just works. It's pretty simple, right? But I guess I'm orthorexic? Let's move on. Yes, it's true. If you decide to change things up from the way you've been doing them for the past several decades, it can feel like you're obsessing over it a bit. But don't mix up obsession with learning and practice and skill development. That's all it is. If you want to learn math, the best way to do it is to do a whole bunch of math problems. If you want to learn a musical instrument, the best way to do it is to play that musical instrument a lot. I was an all-state fancy pants saxophone player in my youth, but it probably took me like 5,000 hours before I started to finally get good at it. I was straight up saxorexic in high school. You know what I mean? So when you want to learn a brand new health promoting diet and lifestyle, it should come as no surprise that you're going to have to spend some time consuming content, reading and watching and listening and discussing and eventually practicing enough to where it's just as easy as it used to be with your old habits. These are not revolutionary ideas, folks. Am I wrong? And if our people seem weird, it's just because most people aren't willing or able to do what it takes, probably because most of the people in their social circle are pulling them back into their old ways by calling them orthorexic all the time. And that's why this channel exists, to be a community for the people that don't have one, because we are right and they are wrong, and we have science to back us up. And by the way, if you like what you hear so far, do subscribe to the channel and join us in the Well Your World Facebook group. That's where the community really hangs out. The haters out there say that we orthorexics have an unusual concern with our health, that we care more about the nutritional content of the food rather than the pleasure of eating it. Now you just sound like whiny children. Yes, I care more about my health than you. We've already established that. That's why I went to the trouble of figuring out the truth, and then you just kind of quit when it got a little bit challenging and then decided to deny reality. This sounds more like your problem than mine. And by the way, this comment is just BS. People that are accustomed to eating healthy food take great pleasure in doing so. Otherwise, we wouldn't be very motivated to keep doing it. If the benefits didn't outweigh the costs, then we just wouldn't do it. You get that, right? Am I the only? The haters also say that a problem exists when a person's behavior begins to hinder their ability to take part in normal society, such as eating out or going to dinner parties. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. We orthorexics know just how to order our own food when we go to restaurants, and we also know how to take our own food to a dinner party so that you don't have to concern yourself with it one bit. What, it hurts your feelings that I eat the food I like in front of you while you eat the food that you like in front of me? I'm sorry that my food brings you so much anxiety, but again, this sounds more like your problem than mine. They say orthorexics become evangelical with friends, family, and loved ones. Yes, it's true, we plant eaters fight the same urges everybody else does to help the people we love live the best lives we can. I talk about this frequently on my channel. I went through a period where I was mistakenly trying to push others to do it like I was doing it because I objectively knew that my way was going to lead them to health and their way was going to lead them to premature death and disability. Shame on me. And while I am right, I understand that that doesn't make it okay for me to push my ways onto other people. So I stopped doing that several years ago. So now maybe it's your turn? Just know that for us healthy people, it can be very challenging watching our loved ones deteriorate before our very eyes, all while knowing the exact thing that would help rescue them. But we'll keep trying to shut up about it, I promise, because why would anyone want to hear that what they're doing will inevitably lead to a nurse having to wipe their butt every day for the last several years of their life? No, forget it, party on. I often talk about nutrient chasing on this channel and how you don't have to worry about absorbing every single molecule of vitamin and mineral in your food in order for you to be healthy. You just need to eat a well-balanced variety of healthy whole plant foods and your body will do what it needs to do. The scientists and experts have proven this. You don't need to get sciencey with it, but just like anything, you can work twice as hard for like 2% of extra benefit, but I don't really think it's worth it. And if that's your thing, then great. But if you're struggling to figure out why this diet and lifestyle is so complicated, then chances are you're just overthinking it and we can work on that. But it does not make you orthorexic, it just makes you a conscientious human who's still working on figuring it all out. Practice. Is there such thing as orthorexia? Yeah, probably, but by that measure, there's a mental condition for too much of just about anything. And my point here today is to say that people that have chosen to live a healthy diet and lifestyle by doing things that the deniers think is obsessive does not make us orthorexic. We are not broken. We are right, and science tells us that. And by the way, this notion always going around that this diet and lifestyle can lead people toward disordered eating because of too much restriction, blah, blah, stop. This is the healthiest, safest diet for people people that are hyper conscientious about their health or their weight. The problem is they all have the wrong friends, their families don't know jack, and they seek advice from professionals who lead them in the wrong direction completely. Introduce them to a community like ours and they will thrive. I can almost guarantee it. So for any dissenters that are watching, I'd like to leave you with a challenge. If you can maintain your moderation intuition diet forever without ever getting overweight, without ever needing prescription drugs to regulate your blood pressure or your cholesterol, then congratulations, you showed me. Just keep doing it. But if you fail, and you will fail, I'm not here to save you, but stop going around telling everybody who's trying to do it right that they're orthorexic just so you feel better about yourself. And when it does finally get bad enough doing it your way, always remember that we'll still be here with open arms ready to nurse you back to great health using a tool you've probably never heard of, reality and facts. Thanks for watching this video. If you like it, do subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.